So where do you begin and where do I end? Where do I begin and where do you end? How connected are we really with life and each other, with our breath? When I focus on the present moment with someone sitting at a bedside, listening deeply to someone who is in pain, the barriers fall away. We're together. And in that moment together, these are precious and important times. Many of us have been there with a friend, listening to pain or joy or sorrow, and just being present, not thinking ahead to teach them this or that, but just listening, being there. Ralph Waldo Emerson and other transcendentalists believed that the spark of the divine was within all things, connects all things. Transcendentalists have faith, as modern Unitarian Universalists do, that a person can find their spiritual truth without the intercession of a priest or scholar. When the holy is in everything and everyone, the only thing that separates us is our own perceptions. Our actions and awareness connect us to the whole, to that deeper wisdom. I want you to think about a time when you were out in nature and imagine how the wind felt or the sun felt or maybe the grass was beneath your feet. Feel your shoulders drop, your breath slow. Feel embraced by that green space that holds you no matter what. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anything other than who you are in that natural space. In 1836, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote in his essay on nature, "Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed in the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egoism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me, and I am part or parcel of God." This is one of my favorite readings I've ever read. I love the idea of being a transparent eyeball when I look up, and that all the membranes, all the invisible things that separate me from everything just melt away. And we're just part of that sacred space, breath, green, held, connected. And when we sing as a choir, there's that sweet little spot where there's a harmony or a breath, or there's that ringing, singing river, or that how can I keep from singing, that I feel connected to something greater than myself. The absolute harmony is knowing, are we Atman or are we Brahman? Am I separate or am I part of the whole? Do we act for ourselves or for the community, or can we do both? I'm taking a class over the next 2 years. It's a certification in spiritual direction. And when most people hear that, they're like, "You're not the boss of me." What do you mean a spiritual director? What does that even mean for Unitarian Universalists? Well, being a spiritual director is actually all about spiritual companioning, and it's more about listening and looking for the movement of what's going on inside of us, or what's going on, listening and asking questions and being present to those moments. Sitting with someone with the barriers dropped down in heart space, not head space. When I went to my class, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get books and I get to read theory, and no. The teacher is a UU minister, and a lot of the people attending are UU ministers or lay people, and it's through Meadville Lombard, which is our seminary in Chicago. And we meet online every 2 weeks, and we also have a week where we have our own readings that we don't meet. So she said, be prepared to cry, be prepared to have everything that you are planning change. And what's really interesting in spiritual practice is that we move out of our heads and we move into being. And so all those heavy things that we have been holding or pushing down or trying to ignore or numb away with distraction, alcohol, music, whatever, they all bubble up, and that can be tender, and that can be hard, and that can be amazing and transformational. So when I started this class in September, I thought, great, I'm gonna learn all these skills, but I wasn't prepared to have my heart broken open. I wasn't prepared to have grief or anxiety or pain, and I just wept, and the people with me were present. And when they wept, I was present for them. And what better gift can we give somebody than to be present? And so when we say spiritual practice, you can be an atheist and have spiritual practice. For some people it's running, and you have on the downbeat, it's maybe some sort of mantra, like I am present, I am aware, whatever it is. Some people wash dishes, and they have, maybe they sing, or maybe they just wash away the worries, let the worries go down the drain. One of the neat things that I'm learning this year that I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you are different spiritual practices. One of them was a tea spiritual practice, which I know a lot of people here drink tea, and she mailed us a box with a tea ball and a cozy little everything, and so we had to, and the tea ball would grow when it got into the water, and then you had to smell it and taste it and sit with it and all these things to be present. And usually, I don't know about you, but I just drink my tea. And so to be present to eating, what does that taste like in your mouth? What is it that you're feeding your body? How are you caring for yourself? What maybe you bought from the local farmer's market, and the people who made your cheese, or maybe you grew a tomato in your garden, and that's from Laurel Kiefer's farm, one of her heritage tomatoes, or maybe Danny gave you some plants and they're blooming now. And so it's all those noticing, all those being, because we live automatically, right? We've got bills to pay and places to go and people to see and jobs and blah, 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 noise, 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 noise. And there's a question of how do we still live in the world? Because that's, of course, the hard part, right? We see these, spiritual beings up on the mountaintop, but how do we live in the world and still have lives that hold meaning, still have lives that are present and quiet sometimes? And so I like to think it's a chance to notice, a chance to notice our emotions. It makes us better partners, better friends when we are paying attention. What is that bringing up in our body when somebody says something? What is that? Why are you angry? Why are you sad? Why is the person next to you upset? Is it something that you said, or is it something that's going on in their life? Or is it just because they're upset? The world's busy and stressful. And we've talked about this, when we're in a car, why is this person tailing me? I just want to go, Urgh. I was driving with Aaron the other day. He's learning how to drive. And of course, when you're teaching someone to drive, you're kind of you're like, oh, you know. So I was very much paying attention. But my anxiety, you know, I have to calm it down because I have to be present for Aaron so I don't stress him out. And this truck was coming up behind us. And I said, why don't you just pull over? Maybe that person has a place to be. And so instead of getting angry and saying, don't mess with my boy, of course I was thinking that, but we pulled over and let the person go on by. We did not honk at them or make rude noises, and we moved on with our lives. So Tara Brach is someone who I've listened to quite a bit. She's a Buddhist writer, and she wrote a book called Radical Acceptance. And she says, through Buddhist awareness practices, we free ourselves by learning to recognize what is true in the present moment and by embracing whatever we see with an open heart. This cultivation of mindfulness and compassion is what we call radical acceptance. Radical acceptance reverses our habit of living at war with experiences that are unfamiliar, frightening, or intense. It is the necessary antidote to years of neglecting ourselves, years of judging and treating ourselves harshly, years of rejecting this moment's experience. Radical acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and our life as it is. A moment of radical acceptance is a moment of genuine freedom. And any of us that are in relationships struggle. You know, sometimes somebody in our family or a friend will get on our nerves, or someone, you know, why do they always do this thing? Why? You know, at some point we have to say, it's because they do that thing. Or accept that maybe they can change if we keep nagging them every single day to not do that thing. Either or, you know. And so that's always a question is, you know, how do we accept our own foibles? You know, I've always been a dreamer, and I tend to be very positive. And in my family, I'm like, it's fine. It's going to be fine. It is not fine, is the response, right, that I get sometimes. And sometimes I need to hear that it's not fine, right? And so that I can say, yeah, maybe it's not fine. Maybe I have to accept that this moment is not fine, but it's going to be fine. And so we are who we are. And, you know, though we can change and we can grow, but if we can accept ourselves, if we can accept our mistakes and try and do better, accept that we are human and not perfect, you know? I don't know what it is about our society that thinks that we should be worker robots who are perfect and wealthy and produce all the time, but it's really toxic. And it's really not healthy. And that's something that I've been trying to unwind. You know, I used to be a stockbroker, so I'm always like, yeah, let's do the next thing. And it makes me feel good. I get really excited about doing the next thing and achieving. But what is achieving? I don't know. You know, achieving could be sitting down with somebody for coffee and really having a good conversation. You know, so I think it's trying to be present to what is it? What does this mean to you in this moment? And so compassion is a great bridge. It's where we see the sacred in each other, recognizing the imago Dei, the holy in each other. I ran across a journal that I wrote during seminary that I was struggling with compassion. I wrote, I've been thinking a lot about how compassion manifests. I've been interested in this, especially observing my two children interacting. What lessons engender compassion in a 3- and 5-year-old? Part of that answer is practicing compassionate parenting and showing example in my own relationships. Anger is a deceptively easy attitude when you're a parent. Children are constantly testing our boundaries and pushing up against their parents' space and authority. I want to be a compassionate parent while giving my kids clear boundaries. It's not easy to let go of that pattern of angry parenting that I received. It isn't that I'm physically aggressive, but I'll find myself getting angry at challenges to my authority. Growing up, anger and guilt were strong tools that my mother and stepfather wielded pretty heavily. It's been hard to reconstruct those parenting techniques, but worth it. Before I became a parent, I examined my relationship with my parents as I did with my partner. We've tried to carry on those best lessons, let go of what isn't helpful. And that seems to be what I'm pursuing in seminary, almost a filter. If we can create a filter in our life and let things pass through that need to go on, that seem healthier, the unnecessary attachments to anger and pain and fear can be filtered away. We can take the kernels and let the rest flow through like sand. And so I'm going to leave us all with the thought of a big coffee filter. And if you haven't done it, go downstairs to the hospitality training and you'll see what a coffee filter looks like. But if we think about letting things go through that filter, what comes through? Really great coffee, really great presence, and really a distilling of who we are, and recognizing that we are constantly becoming. And so in that spirit, I'm going to move us on to our meditation.